comedian whose popularity was sparked by TikTok is now dealing with backlash on social media about a joke. Matt Rife's Netflix special starts with a punchline about domestic violence. It has garnered a lot of criticism, but his so-called apology might be making it worse.
On the internet, people can say anything they want.
Matt Rife may be right, but that doesn't mean there won't be any backlash. A lesson he's learning after his Netflix special was released this month. And Rife has no problems pushing boundaries when it comes to his comedy.
How could he say something like that? Cancel Matt Rife!
In that Netflix special, the 28-year-old started the show with a joke about domestic violence, where the punchline says a waitress's black eye was her own fault. He then followed it up with this line.
Testing the waters, just seeing if y'all are still fun. Just wanted to say.
The in-house crowd may have laughed, but the internet did not, with people accusing him of victim blaming and making light of abuse. His response on Instagram was a link to an apparent official apology, but it was instead a link to a website that sells helmets to protect against seizures, head trauma, and headbanging.
Yes, he's lying. That's what we call a blatant lie.
Rife rose to fame on TikTok by posting parts of his act, which reportedly resulted in a largely female following. Those clips translated into a sold-out international tour and then this Netflix special. The streaming giant hasn't censored or pulled the bit from its service, and it's unclear if that joke will erode Rife's fan base or make it even stronger.
Here is the question we've been asking for you in your take. Should Rife apologize? 76.1% of you say no, he shouldn't. 23.9% of you say yes, he should. Let's bring back Dan and Domanique. I guess, Domanique, we'll start with you on this one. Do you think an apology is in order?
Okay, well, first, Matt, this is directly to you. No, you shouldn't be making jokes about domestic violence in 2023. We're all very aware of this, so let's just not be doing that. I'm going to give another opinion as well, too. He does have a point, unfortunately, not about domestic violence, but about what we choose to have an issue with versus what we choose not to. Just as an example, comedians from the beginning of time have been putting on skits that are offensive. They talk about problematic things, and that is the basis of the majority of the most popular comedians around the world. They take heavy topics, they make jokes about them, and people want to buy tickets. When you go on somewhere like Netflix and you see thousands of films, thousands of different TV shows that are posted, I'm always curious about what people choose to be offended about versus what they choose not to be. Like, if we're going to demand an apology, which people are entitled to, domestic violence is a serious thing and it shouldn't be joked about. How do we create a structure around that? Why is it just this that is demanding an apology and not the hundreds of other films that are on Netflix that, you know, are very popular and that people don't say anything about? And so, yes, there's a problem there, but I also think that the bigger conversation piece is how do we have conversations about comedy? Like, what is comedy supposed to be today? If this area of his skit is being censored, then what is that to say about the future of comedians and what they're putting on? And I don't have the answer to that, but I just think that we have to be really careful about picking one thing as an issue, but not looking at all the other things that sit on platforms like Netflix that we actually don't want to call out.
Yeah, and it's good that we're having this conversation, and also good that, Dan, you also dabble in stand-up. So you know where that line can be and cannot be.
Yeah, and as an erstwhile comedian, I hold comedians to a pretty high standard. I like it when a comedian can turn a joke into a political, like if they take a stand and they make that stand known through their humor. Sometimes it falls flat. I'm not saying that that's what Matt Rife was doing here. You know, I would have hoped that he maybe would have used the joke to call attention to the, you know, rising cases of domestic violence and even femicide, if that's what he was doing, you know, if he was making a statement about Baltimore. But I don't think that's what he was doing. I like Matt Rife, but I think what he's guilty of in this case is writing and delivering a bad joke. It was a bad joke, badly executed. And I wish that he or somebody on his team would have thought better and said to him, maybe don't put this in the lineup. That said, I'm going to agree with Domanique as well in that You know, we have to be careful about telling people what they should and should not laugh at, because if you look at the clip, and it's the case with, you know, Dave Chappelle, and it's the case with Louis C.K. Louis C.K. is still selling out stadiums. Dave Chappelle, my favorite comedian, but has raised a lot of ire in the trans community. But, you know, these guys deliver jokes to a theater filled with fans, and let's pretend 50% of the audience laughs and 50% of them don't. Why would we defer to one 50% over the other? If they get a laugh, they get a laugh. That said, I'm not comfortable laughing at things like domestic violence or racism and hate, but it is out there. Do I think they should cancel Matt Rife? No, not if he's made the one bad joke. The rest of his stuff is great, and I don't think Netflix should necessarily should censor him. But yeah, I think we have to. I think we have to take a step back anytime, because if this was, let's say, a 75-minute show, and the joke in question took about 30 seconds to say, maybe put more weight on the stuff that was good rather than the stuff that was, let's use air quotes, offensive.
Yeah, Domanique, he led with that joke, which I think is sort of quizzical in all of this, because then he said, okay, I just wanted to see if you all are still with me or not, almost as if he was, you know, dipping his toe in the proverbial pool. So that's a tough lead, and you know, to Dan's point, sure, if the rest of the show didn't have anything anywhere close to that, but at the same time, I mean, that's a really I wouldn't even say interesting thing. That's a tough thing to be leading with, and then how do you sort of go on with the rest of the show and people not continue to think about that if they're uncomfortable with it?
I mean, I agree. Like, I heard the joke, I was like, oh, this is terrible. This isn't, you know, it's the laugh out of discomfort, and I probably would have been in the audience laughing out of discomfort. And so I agree with that. I agree that anyone who's offended and anyone who feels like that shouldn't be joked about absolutely has a right to feel that way. I also know that comedy and the structure of comedy that sells out stadiums, it's very similar to how it was selling out stadiums, you know, 10 to 20, 30, 40 years ago. A lot of the things today that we actually are uncomfortable with, that we vocalize and that we say, you know, shouldn't happen, these same things were not a thing back in the day. And I bring this up because stadiums still sell out with comedians who tell jokes that really make people cringe. And so, again, I think the intention behind it was probably to make light of a really difficult topic. I don't really know if there is a positive way to make light of any form of domestic violence, but I am just trying to make the point that this is comedy. Comedians don't create skits that are supposed to be fully comfortable for people. They're supposed to be uncomfortable, and they're supposed to prompt a lot of outrage. They're also supposed to prompt a lot of laughter. And I think one of the things that we're seeing, which we could look at as positive, is that there is a profile being raised on the lack of acceptance for domestic violence, and seeing the response is something that maybe society should be really proud of, and seeing that they actually really care about those experiences, which maybe 40, 50 years ago, that wasn't the case. And so I think that's a win. But again, I just say that I don't really know what the answer is, because this is what sells, unfortunately, and that's what the full stadium of folks paid tickets for.
Yeah, and Dan, I guess in the last minute that I have, that I'll try and get both of you on this, I guess in a sense Netflix doesn't have a choice. They can't sort of censor it or say that they'll pull it.
They can choose to pull it. I think that would be a bad decision, because it would set a precedent. By, you know, here's a comedian and the public is outraged. Oh, let's take him back. In terms of whether or not he should apologize, look, if he doesn't apologize, those people who are asking for an apology, those people who are saying they're offended, they will get over it with time. Nothing actually bad will happen to you if you're offended and no one apologizes to you.
Dominique, last word to you on the either Netflix or the apology.
Netflix can't pull things down just because the public is outraged about it. And so, no, I agree that would set a really bad precedence. Yeah, I think it's like a lose-lose thing here. And an apology it would be great, just because I know it probably affected a lot of people. So it would be really good on him to do it. But is he obligated? I don't necessarily think so.
Yeah, and would it be hollow if he's forced to do it? That, another question.